refuse to go along with this, and I've seen through all of your lies, Barack Obama, you wicked, wicked devil! I refuse to go along with this, and
Well, welcome back. We're here for part two of our two-part special of Psaki Biden. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be very interesting. We got some stuff that's going to go on here. There's this other clip that we wanted to show here.
We have a lot of other things to cover here, but I look to Dr. Sherwood. Are we moving?
Joe Biden, wake up. Joe Biden, wake up. 9/11.
One of the things that I strongly believe is
Joe Biden, wake up.
I should probably go home. I'm tired.
Joe Biden, wake up.
It's so perfect.
I'm tired.
Oh, that's funny.
Joe Biden.
What's happening?
Joe Biden.
What's happening?
What's happening?
Joe.
Run faster, Joe. Run, Joe, run.
Hello,
Hello.
Mr. President. Wake up.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
Medicare. You should have to pay nearly $6,400 more than you would today.
Wake up, wake up.
Wake up.
Let's send this guy's channel the expert.
That's funny.
He's funny.
That's funny. So, if that wasn't, pushing some lines, some bounds, and some possible music, infringements, whatever, which could be interesting. Let's start with this lady here. This lady, she's a very interesting lady. So, before I did that, actually, I want to share.
Interesting lady.
No, she is, but we have to remember the point that we were here.
Oh yeah, Uncle Fester.
Well, right, we were watching. Remember part one was about Jen Psaki and had everything to do with
Uncle Fester.
this media bias chart that I had shown. So here's the media bias chart again. So this is the first article that we're going to go through. Remember yesterday's article that we went to that was the most prominent one or whatever was that Slate. And it was, where did it go? Thought it stood out easier yesterday. It was up on over in the left. It was up in here, I thought, over by the intercept. Either way, it was fairly, left leaning. And now today we're going to go through this article from the commentary, and they're pretty far right leaning, So, the only reason I point out where they're coming from, is because of the content that they're actually pushing at us. So, the left does an article on the left, and they're making it look like the left is so great, and this, that, and the other, and this is the truth, and that's the truth. And they want you to actually believe certain things are, more true than others.
Go back to that chart once more, just for a second. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a very interesting chart.
I mean, look how far over every freaking thing that like New York Post. There's freaking Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace. Like all this stuff, and it's just like it just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing far down. Now look at that red bar there, right? It says
this
left,
one
right?
along here.
Okay. Now notice there's nothing that's left wing that crosses that bar, but like maybe one thing that's like
right.
a third of the way over. And then look at over there. There's like a million. It's just like it just keeps pouring over the side of like, oh my god, everything.
Jimmy
is
Dore's
right-wing,
not
so
even
extreme.
in the box. Jimmy Dore's outside the red box. the red box, if you can't make it out, it says contains inaccurate, fabricated info down below, which would be world truth and natural news, and before it news. This one says containing misleading info, so it's like the larger chunks. So, Dan Bongino, Infowars, OAN, Charlie Kirk, Health.News, and Marcola are all right and supposedly contains misleading info. The only thing on the left that contains that misleading info is this Veterans Today, which kind of makes you wonder, that's kind of interesting.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, Rachel Maddow is in analysis, what is that? High validation and reliability.
high variation in reliability.
Variation. What the hell? She hasn't variated her freaking
Variation in
hairstyle
reliability.
since she was a 12-year-old boy. I mean, like holy hell.
Right,
Cuomo?
but you still consider almost,
He's not
she's
even there.
skews left. She's almost into the hyperpartisan left. No, I think that she's a little further left than they're actually putting her at.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying though? It's like this whole chart. It's like, there's all these there's this bunch of beefiness right towards the area where oh yeah, there's a reliable. It's great. It's fantastic, and it's all left wing bullshit and propaganda bullshit. And then anything that would be remotely contradictory to that, it's just pouring down and cascading into the right. It's like.
I swear to God, that Slate one yesterday was right where the Intercept is, right here, whatever, right in around that same area. Just
Yeah, this one's different too.
Right, this is a little different. I had to re-pull it up for whatever reason. It was gone, so I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I can pull it up again. I must have pulled up one that is sitting next to it, but it's not it's not too often variation from each other. They're really super super close.
Of course, Jimmy.
That being said, just want to point out the bias of the articles and the stuff that we're actually reading, because we read the thing about Jen Psaki that came from the left. We're going to read this thing about Lena Wen. It comes from the right, and she's been there's articles about this or news clips about this lady or whatever, and her some of her commentary that she's made. I find it really interesting, and that's what who I'm talking about.
This lady,
Lena Wen, this one here.
Oh, the orc doctor. Yes, former head of Planned Parenthood. Yes,
this lady. So
the murderous.
Before we start, we're not
witch.
Doctors. We're not lawyers. We're not anything.
She's a professional.
Just
killer.
a couple of people that are out here trying to work our way through the YouTube stuff or whatever, and see if we can't pick up some kind of a following of sorts. And,
I mean, if you consider Dr. Mengele a doctor, she would qualify, right? Anyway,
if you consider her a doctor, so I mean, yeah, Lena Wen is not being honest with you. It says
the orc princess,
and like I said, this comes out of the commentary, and the commentary was very right leaning, almost hyper right leaning,
dirty pointed teeth and all.
It really depends on how you feel about the other side and what your opinion would be of each one of these places that are putting this kind of information out. So it starts out, this is the science has changed, declared Dr. Lena Wen on Monday, the George Washington University public health expert, columnist, and ubiquitous presence in CNN since the start of the pandemic, buoyantly informed the network's viewers that the receding threat posed by certain things is an outgrowth of new scientific revelations about that said virus. So I mean, when it comes to those particulars, they can be very very controversial on opinion. Some people think it is actually something. Most of us really do believe it is something. It's just how they're pushing and mandating things is just not fair. What revelations? Well, first, the vaccines work. Children now have access to these vaccines. If you want to mask up, you, the wearer, are protected. And because the Omicron variant is milder, we should not rely on the case counts of reliable metrics to gauge the pandemic's threat to public health. Accordingly, any masking ordinances should shift from a government mandate to an individual responsibility. That's especially true for young children because there actually is a harm that we should be discussing of children continuing to mask. So
I mean, that's incredible right there.
actually is a harm that we should be discussing of children continuing to mask.
I mean, that's incredible. Like, she was just, how many months ago was it? Not too many months ago. She was like, talking about how you need to wear like an entire box of them and put them on your face or something, like something, well, not literally, but like, I mean, she's constantly for this crap. Now she's like, oh, well, there might be some, harm to like constantly doing this kind of shit. Like, no way. I mean, think about it, right? Like, if you were to put a freaking, let's say, for example, hyperbole, like a freaking Ziploc bag or like a plastic thing over top of your face, and you just kept breathing out, do you think that would be sanitary for your face?
I forgot I had to do this. See, it says, do you want to read the rest without subscribing? Well, yeah, I do. Dang it.
No.
Yeah, that kind of stuff happens. So, I mean,
It's
we get
live.
to make just it's just not, it's not allowing me to click.
Come on.
Let's refresh it. See what happens there.
Ooh, there we go.
These are welcome missions, but it's unclear that science has evolved to a point that's now enables one is to articulate the same principles in the same language that critics of COVID mitigation regimes have been stating for months. We've known for a long time that masking children has profound psychosocial consequences that are arguably not justified by the threat of the infection poses to the children.
And there were other of those doctors. Remember the NIH director was talking about how he went on to Fox News and literally called anyone else at the very beginning of all of this. They went to some of these doctors and professionals and psychologists and things, and they asked them, what if we mandate all this kind of stuff from the government? And what if we tell everybody in schools and in these other different places, what if we tell them all to do this? And they were like, oh God, no, it's like that's terrible. That's horrible. And then they just went off and slandered them and was like, these people are crazy. They're insane. They're mentally unhinged. They're crazy. And then the NIH director is questioned about it on Fox News with Brett Baier at the 6 o'clock hour. And he tells Brett Baier, we don't listen to crazy people at the NIH, okay? We don't listen to these crazy people. These are people who are in Oxford and Stanford and like freaking Yale and like whatever. I mean, these people are like high up academics. These are very well researched, very well studied people. They've been doing what they've been doing for like 30 plus years or whatever. And they're on a list to be contacted by the NIH for a reason, right? Because they're, they have the credentials to be there. And so they were contacted and they said, no, we don't agree with this. And they're literally just slandered now all the time because it's like, oh, you're crazy, you're insane. And then, look, the former head of Planned Parenthood now posing as a doctor on CNN because, hey, you get to be a doctor by slaughtering kids in a slaughterhouse. She gets to, oh, yeah, by the way, maybe you shouldn't be doing that all the time, might not be all that good. Like, oh, that's great. Thanks. That's wonderful. We just had people talking about that like literally before you even issued this shit.
Right. So this continues. This is, we've known that vaccines prevent serious illness. in an overwhelming majority of cases. We've known that masking can protect the wearer from pathogens, though mask mandates do not necessarily protect the society around the wearer. We've known that case counts are a bad metric for gauging the threat and public health posed by community transmission.
I mean, this is so insane.
This natural immunity conveys many benefits as immunity acquired through vaccinations. The science hasn't changed. The politics of the pandemic have.
I mean, this is so insane. Like, you can't even say, right? Like, I mean, look at this. Look at this up there. Like, they still have to say masking protects the wearer from pathogens. What the hell is a pathogen, by the way? What do you define as a pathogen? A pathogen isn't just simply, whatever the government states it as or whatever you want it to be. It doesn't. I mean, I don't think you can say this, but I mean, again, think about this, right? Like, if you were to put something over your face and breathe into it all day, you're going to get water vapor in there, and you're going to get whatever's in your mouth or whatever's in your nose, and it's going to come out and go on to whatever's in front of your face.
Using that device, I mean, and that's the thing is I'm not against people doing certain things or whatever, but they need to actually know about how to use them.
I mean,
properly. There
surgeons have to go.
Proper use techniques that need to be implemented and explained. Like this woman herself has explained that, the cloth ones really are just facial decorations, whereas the medical grade ones are actually the ones that you need to be wearing. Those are the ones that are going to actually be the best for you. And you can see it when you see them wearing or whatever they're larger masks, and they give you space to actually talk. They're not. Right, they're not against your face, so you're actually trying to talk to a thing that so instead of putting this thing over your face, so you can really
insane. I mean, it sounds like you're being smothered with a pillow. It's like, excuse me, it's like, reporter so-and-so, you're like, what's on the news? It's like,
and that pillow, because you keep on talking into it, it keeps on picking up moisture throughout the day, and you continue to wear it. And then you take it off and you leave it set for a few minutes so you can go and eat. And then you go and you pick it back up and you put it back on your face. It's somewhat dried, but it's not completely dried, and you feel that moisture from that. That's not good. That's not healthy.
No, that's
you need to actually change your mask, which is the reason for the medical grade ones or whatever. So I mean,
right. I mean, like, for example, like freaking surgeons, they'll freaking take their masks that they wear, they'll take them off like every half hour or less, because they'll tell you, in like different interviews and stuff, if you watch these different people or whatever. It's not like it's the hugest deal in the world, but when they talk about it, they'll tell you, what we do with masks, and it's not in any relation to do with like COOF or anything. It's just simply what they will tell you about their specific instance as a surgeon. They'll tell you, the mask as a surgeon, they want to wear the mask so that nothing gets into, or no like bacteria will get onto whatever they're doing. But then they'll take the mask off in like 20 or 30 minutes and they'll throw it away and they'll get another one, because they'll tell you, I don't want to get strep, or I don't want to get like some other crazy bacteria or whatever. And that's what they'll say about, their thing with, being a surgeon. So like, I mean, common sense dictates here, right? So you kind of draw the conclusion there, right?
Right. So I kind of scrolled up because I didn't think I actually, this article is from February 8th. So from the 8th to the 11th, because it's now midnight, whatever. I mean, it is a few days old, so, possible things could change. So remember, Susan, we're just reading a news article. We're not playing doctor. We're not telling people what to do, when to do it, how to do it. They should go see their doctor and do what's best for them.
Although YouTube likes playing doctor a lot, though, it seems like, right? Anyway.
Oh, you don't say. February 1st, Washington Post column, when all but acknowledges that she is guided by professional considerations as much as the science. Yes, she concedes new and possibly dangerous variants are likely to emerge, but it's precisely because of this future threat that we need to allow normalcy now. The science doesn't make an appearance in the sensible piece, but the doctor's understanding of human nature and her industry's need to preserve its credibility do feature prominently. Throughout the pandemic, Wen has been a reliable conveyor of conventional wisdom that prevails not within the public health community per se, but among the political officials most committed to COVID hawkishness. That conventional wisdom has often been maddeningly mercurial, but when could usually be counted on to convey the consensus view among elite policymakers at any given time. As early as April of last year, Wen relayed what she believed should be the country's primary objective, promoting vaccination as the ticket back to pre pandemic life. The chief obstacle to the objective being the states that prematurely lift mitigation protocols because otherwise, if everything is reopened, how are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? Do
It's
not.
almost as though someone wants to use government force to force someone to take some sort of a product of, supposed health from a corporation, a major corporation.
Right.
Huh. It's almost like private and
Like
public
somebody got
are
sucked
like
into the.
merging together here. It's like, yeah.
Right. This didn't just advance a political goal of tarnishing states like Texas, which was in the middle of a public shaming campaign over its decision to lift its statewide mask mandate. Wen's comments also revealed the degree to which the medical community's most prominent voices believe their roles wasn't only to provide accurate data and recommendations so rational people could gauge their own levels of risk. Their job was to shape and guide public behavior. Following a successful effort to pressure the CDC into reversing fields on its decision to par, uh, pare back masking mandates, when explained in July 2021 why it's necessary to restore masking mandates because we don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. The absence of the regime that could corroborate the individual vaccination status ensures that everyone must be masked, not only to arrest COVID spread, but to incentivize vaccines.
I like your Dr. Wen voice, by the
Yeah,
way.
you like
Oh
that?
yeah,
I
it's
was kind
pretty
of
accurate.
working out a
It's
bit.
like,
You said
now you need to add a little more like
incentivize
kind of like
vaccines.
raspiness in the back of your voice because she's part orc,
Well,
like she's
see,
not. She's fully
I
orc.
was kind of trying to integrate the news thing from. I can't think right now. My brain's into this. My brain can't think outside of this at the moment for whatever reason. It's like, no, you stay right here. No, I was trying to channel the Family Guy. She
Oh,
talks like that. And she just has a way of actually saying her stuff.
oh,
Yeah, but
oh,
at the
okay.
same time, it's not really the best. I'm not a voice changing person. I have to learn how to use my voice mod and actually use that to my advantage. On the day when endorsed a stricter vaccination verification regime, the average case rate in the U.S. was roughly 45,000 new positive tests per day. On February 1, the day she recommended scaling back mask mandates, the U.S. daily case rate was 450,000. And though vaccination rates are far higher today than they were in April, they're not much higher today than they were last November. Then, Wang had no qualms about coupling COVID mitigation protocols with case rates, at which point she deemed over 70,000 new cases as far too high an infection rate to contemplate easing restrictions, as were the number of deaths attributable to COVID. Roughly 1,000 fatalities a day in November, which was somehow more unnerving than today's 2,500. I don't know if these numbers are correct. I really didn't go into doing the research to be sure the numbers were correct. I mean, you can take the numbers with what with a grain of salt, if anything, just because that's possible conflating numbers either direction. We don't know. This isn't all, and it's all been estimates and from everybody, ballparks. That's why you see so many zeros. If it was right on the mark, you'd see 531, whatever.
Yeah, all of those digits would be filled out with some kind of a number.
Right. There'd be
rather
a number.
Than just zero.
It wouldn't just be 45,000. It wouldn't be 70,000. It wouldn't, nobody knows if those numbers are correct. Yeah, almost over with. In September, Wen acknowledged that the flimsy piece of paper that's so easy to counterfeit was not sufficient to prove vaccination status. That alone justified not only universal masking, but more onerous inducements of unvaccinated to rectify the negligence. Remaining unvaccinated and going out in public is equivalent to driving under the influence.
Oh, God.
That's what she told CNN's Chris Cuomo.
The pedophile who's now out of a job.
No one should have the choice to infect others with a potentially deadly disease.
Oh, my God.
The logical deficiencies of the outlook were so obvious that as they were today, the unvaccinated pose no deadly risk to those who are vaccinated and not immunocompromised. The honor system, she so despairs, is still very much in place where vaccination verification regimes are in place at all. Still, one singular goal has been to promote immunization. So when Joe Biden's administration announced it would be fine medium at large-sized businesses that didn't have a vaccination or testing regime in place, she said it didn't go far enough. We need vaccination mandates to travel, not just abroad, but across state lines as well.
Across state lines.
State lines? What about the state lines? What would state lines only matter in certain cases?
Across state lines.
But Biden's mandate never went into effect. The court determined that it had no constitutional basis. None of the other draconian measures, when advocated only 3 months ago, ever went into effect either. They passed into memory as quickly as did Wen's full-throated advocacy for them. They full-throated.
Oh my.
Just as 1 month ago, the doctor was still evangelizing the benefits of universal masking regardless of vaccination status. Everyone should be wearing at least a 3-ply surgical mask. A cloth mask on top can help with fit. An N95 or KN95 mask is better, or is even better protection. which obviously, yeah, we went through this. Yes, absolutely. N95 masks are the way to go. Those are the ones that are supposed to be the ones that you should be wearing. You know, it's just, throwing a cloth mask over the top to help with fit. Right. Because some people's faces aren't as big as others. People are built different from each other. I'm kind of skimming through here a little bit to see if there's anything good. Um, when the Biden administration's objective was to popularize the provision free N95 masks to the public in response to shortages, one delivered a lecture on absolute necessity of ensuring that everyone could arm themselves with high quality masks. This is particularly important now that we have an extremely contagious Omicron variant. Yes, it is. It's very dangerous to catch a disease that has a 98% chance of living. 99.8. I don't know. I don't remember that exact number on that. To their credits, what's up?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, something like that. 99.8. I mean, we should be scared. All of whom announced that the mask mandates would begin to sunset in other states in coming weeks didn't invoke the science to justify the decision. They predicted their move in declining case counts and stability of local hospitals and the low rates of transmission in school settings regardless of the mitigation measures in place. There's no new science here. The only thing that has changed in the past few weeks when it comes to the pandemic is that the public is saying in no uncertain terms that its patience with the status quo is at an end. Its patience with the status quo is at an end. People are sick of this crap. People are getting just nobody wants to, nobody cares.
Honk honk.
Oh,
Hence
you
the
don't
honking.
say. Today, Wen insists that hers is the nuanced view of the pandemic, alternative outlooks that conflict with her own,
Ooh.
whatever it happens to be at the moment, are extreme and fringe, but her consistent inconsistency is indicative of how the political class has navigated the pandemic,
Consistent
lurching from one
inconsistency.
absolute imperative, right, to altogether different but all-consuming priority, the cumulative effect of which has been the sap of the public confidence in the expert classes. In the end, as befits the representative democracy, the voters will get what they want. Right now, the voters are sending every indication that they want, uh, that what they want is way out of the pandemic. The public could be forgiven for thinking the chief factor motivating the public health pivot now underway is less about the data and more about the endless pursuit of relevance. The articles is interesting in this, and like I said, it comes from the hyper right. So they kind of, they have their opinions of their own, and this, it's telling you, when this being is not being honest with you. But let's see who Noah Rothman is.
I mean, for this Mrs. Wen here, this Dr. Mangala here, Dr. Wen, I mean, how many kids do you have to authorize to be killed before you feel relevant, I guess? I mean, in their mother's womb. Like how much of that has to happen before, oh, I feel satisfied? If that's if that's the the point that they're
Right.
trying to make.
Right.
Again, former head of Planned Parenthood here. For I forget how many years she was, but I don't think it was too long, but
So,
she did sit at the head of it for a little bit.
yeah.
Lena Wen.
You know when she's been around for a while.
The orc priestess.
So then, a real quick on who the author of that story is Noah Rothman, a conservative American editor, political commentator, and author. He serves as an online editor of commentary.
Commentary.
I mean, Bachelor of Arts degree in Russian Studies and
Oh,
Master of Relations
Russian.
at Seton Hall.
We shall win this for Mother Russia.
So, I mean, been around for a while, known for his articles, I'm
A little
sure.
bit,
Just a little bit. Born in 81, I mean, he's not young per se. Not that he's old, but he's not young.
But I know he's
So
not really old.
that
He's
was
like not
that.
really young, but he's also not really old.
I mean, it was an interesting article on Lena and some of the
The
stuff
orc
that
high priestess is
calling
an
her out,
interesting individual.
right, that they're calling her out on. I kind of like some of the points that they actually called her out on, because that's pretty much what it comes down to is some of the things that are said can be misconstrued sometimes from either side of the spectrum, which brings up the reason that we're here. The reason that we're here, really, what it comes down to is this right here, the media bias chart. Because articles come from both sides. And if you don't read from both sides and hear everything that needs to be said, you're not going to have an opinion. And you're just going to go along with what people are talking about and what they're, whatever. And you could stumble in here and you could be listening to me right now and being like, huh, I really like what this guy just said, and I'm interested in how he's saying it, whatever. And you could be very interesting when it comes down to where you get your news from. You really have to kind of pay attention to what you're reading. And I mean, as you're looking at the media bias chart here, the few articles that we're going to go through for Joe Biden, one comes from the Daily Caller. One comes from the Atlantic. We got one from the Hill. We're going to be here for a little bit. Got one from the Daily Beast. So all spectrums.
Oh yeah, and look at the top there, right? Like the most accurate and the most fact reporting they claim is Associated Press. I wonder who made this list. Was it the Associated Press?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah,
or
right.
someone affiliated, or
put
I don't
themselves
know.
dead center top. Like we're the most factual.
And then beneath them is Reuters, brought to you by Pfizer.
And again, Susan, we're just reading the news. We're not telling people when to do it, how to do it, when to do it. They should actually go see the doctors, do what's best with them.
It rhymes with miser.
Before we move on, we're going to do a little thing here. I am
their CEO looks
Koolfrogg.
like a miser.
You can find me. There's a link tree down below. That'd be
Face crooked.
Linktree/Koolfrogg. There's lots of links that you can actually find me. You can find me from Twitter to Getter to there's a Teespring. There's multiple other versions and variations of places, including like buymeacoffee.com. That one you can help me out immediately. And, any help is greatly appreciated. Before we go on too far, we're going to also let Shirts go ahead and show himself out for a little bit here.
Oh yeah, before I do that, look over here on
What do you
the
got
chart thing, right?
Yeah.
There's apparently a newspaper or a news something or other called Jezebel. Like that's attractive.
Yeah.
Like, oh hey, guess what? I'm gonna go read my daily Jezebel. Like, oh, what is she gonna sacrifice your kid to Molech? Like, what the hell? Like, what? Why you? What is this? Like the evil witch queen of the Old Testament, and like you entitle your news operation after after this evil queen? Like what? Watch it be a feminist paper. What's it?
I like going to this one here.
Forbes.
I use the Forbes for a lot of things. Their content's usually pretty straightforward and easy to actually get through. Their YouTube channel is great.
Just the news is good too.
I've used it quite a bit. Because according to this, right down the center. Actually, maybe a little left.
Oh
But
yes, I'm supposed to show.
They're usually a place for me to go. Like I said, I do have several articles come up here. So the one's going to come from Newsweek. Newsweek. One's going to come from The Hill. One was going to come from The Atlantic. Where is it? I don't see it.
You have to ask Steve Jobs' former wife where the hell that went. I say former because he's
either
dead.
way.
Anyway.
We can always look that up to see how politically lenient it really is. Got one from Fox News, and I got one
evil,
from the Daily Caller.
Evil, horrible person. Fox News, Daily Caller. Oh my god!
All right. So
call the FBI.
As interesting as all that, Key. Let's get into this. We got a few things to read out.
Oh, did you want me to show?
Yeah. Yes,
well, you can go to americashirtsthefurs.com, get yourself the most base t-shirts on the freaking planet, people. Drop those truth bombs, make the lefties go of course, because you got to do that, right? Promote the truth and have fun doing it with your t-shirt. Tell everybody that sees it will know the truth when you wear it. Grab yourself one. Use the discount code Koolfrogg to get 15% off any shirt in the store. That's discount code Koolfrogg. americashirtsfirst.com.
Yeah, buddy. 15%. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. So if you want to help both of us out, you can support me, and I'll go buy his shirts.
Yeah, drop the crack pipes and go grab yourself a shirt.
Eventually, I'll go and I'll sport his shirt on camera for you, so that way.
Sport your shirt. Anyway.
Right. So, Biden admin to fund crack pipes, heroin use for drug addicts.
Because if we need anything else in this country, it's more people on crack.
Right.
And Joe Biden knows an awful lot about people being on crack.
You can see they actually put a correction in here. A previous headline in the story stated Biden admin to fund such things. The headline has been updated to clarify the administration will grant money for safe syringe programs which fund the distribution of clean needles, not heroin itself.
Yes, just the very thing that you use to inject heroin with. It's not like you drink heroin. You inject it. So the only way that you can use heroin is the tool that they provide, right?
Well, you'd hope that people would, think about certain things as they're injecting themselves with other things, that they should be really safe about what they're actually sticking in their body.
Indeed.
So
Before you just jab yourself with a
we're not
needle.
doctors. We're not saying shit. We're just reading the news. We find it interesting. So, President Joe Biden's administration is reportedly planning to facilitate drug use with a policy agenda reminiscent of those deployed in some major blue cities like San
Yep, there it
Francisco.
is. Yep. Because I was just about to bring that up, right? That's what they do in San Francisco. That's what they do in other places in California. Is they literally hand out freaking needles, and then there's needles all over the freaking ground with piles of shite everywhere. It's great. You can get all kinds of experience with battling all kinds of different infections and things, right? I mean,
Biden's Department of Health and Human Services closed grant applications Monday for applying to fund the distribution of crack pipes to drug addicts, according to a single anonymous source cited by the Washington Free Beacon.
because everybody has the
Meanwhile,
right to a crack.
the Department of Justice told the Associated Press Friday it's open to allow safe injection sites where drug addicts can use heroin and other dangerous drugs in an environment with protections against
I mean,
overdose.
that is so freaking insane. Think about that. It's like, hey, don't worry. We'll have like a little safe zone tent for you to come in, and you can just sit right there and inject yourself with as much heroin as you want, and we'll just keep you alive, homeless person that's going to jack themselves up with drugs. I mean, like, how insane is that? You're literally telling them. I mean, it's just like the cartoon of like like the fat guy, or like, like on freaking Monk, the TV show, where they had that Dale the whale character, and like
Right.
he just pays everybody off to keep him alive, and he's so fat and huge, but he just keeps stuffing his face. I mean, like, that's what this is. It's like, it's an addiction, and they're literally killing themselves. And it's like, well, okay, you know what? Instead of helping you to like not try and kill yourself every day with drugs, we're just gonna keep you kind of like, we'll not keep you, but like,
We're
you can
going to
come
keep
to
you
a
in the
tent.
loop, keep on, you keep on doing more.
Right.
We'll be here to save you.
Exactly. And then the next time when that tent is filled or is not there, and they're already addicted and they already have that high, and they're like really, they feel like their brain's gonna fall out of their head unless they jack themselves up with drugs. Guess what? They're gonna OD and kill themselves. So
Right.
thanks a lot,
So then
Department
it
of Justice.
continues. This is the Crack Pipe Grant Program will distribute $30 million to local governments and nonprofits in an attempt to make drug use safer. And it will begin in May, according to the WFH. HHS reportedly said it will provide smoking kits supplies for addicts to reduce risk of infection when smoking with glass pipes.
What the hell?
Infection from what? But I mean, I suppose if you're cutting yourself open with the chip of the glass pipe or whatever, but you shouldn't be banging on your pipe. I mean,
Oh my God. You know what WFH stands for?
according to the WFH, did it tell us earlier?
No, I just looked it up here. I was just asking.
The Washington Free.
It means
What is-
World Federation of Hemophilia.
Oh, okay. See,
Like-
I should have done a little bit more deeper research into some of these articles that I pulled up.
Well, I just
But-
pulled it up here, but
No, it's
it's not.
fine. No, right. So I mean, it's that's an interesting thought.
It's like, wow.
Okay.
And their
so,
main goal is to, provide a treatment for all, humanitarian aid, data collection and research, educating people to help in humanitarian whatever. It's like, oh yes, that's great job.
in accordance to Biden's executive order for advancing racial equality, grant money will be prioritized for institutions which serve people of color and LGBT communities, according to the Washington Free Beacon.
Because they all want y'all on
And
drugs.
racial
Everybody.
equality goes and separates it out to be just one I'm so confused on this.
See, they love black people so much that they
These-
want them all to be addicted and to, get themselves so high on drugs. And then, oh, don't worry, you're going to be in like this little tent area and then we'll keep you alive from overdosing. And then when all of those people can't make it to that area, or maybe they move it to another area of the city, all of those black people die of overdoses because they just love you all so much.
Right.
And they just want you to get off of drugs and get off of the crazy bullshit
And
that's frying you. But like, whatever.
HHS Secretary
They love
Javier
you.
Becerra issued a statement Wednesday
not
denying
racist.
that crack pipes would be included in the safe smoking kits paid for by the grant program. HHS and ONDCP are focused on using our resources smartly to reduce harm and save lives. Accordingly, no federal funding will be used directly or through subsequent reimbursement of guarantees to put pipes in safe smoking kits. The goal of harm reduction is to save lives.
For a
The
certain period of
administration
time.
is focused on comprehensive strategy to stop the spread of drugs and curb addiction, including prioritizing the use of proven harm reduction strategies like providing naloxone, some fentanyl test strips, and cleaning syringes, as well as taking decisive actions to go after violent criminals who are trafficking illicit drugs like fentanyl across our borders into our communities.
Yeah, because you're totally doing a good job of stopping that, right? Oh, wait, no. No, you're
Yeah,
not
they're
actually.
doing a wonderful job
Oh,
leaving that
beautiful,
wide
right?
open and worrying about somebody else's borders as opposed to worrying about our own borders.
See,
But
they
why
keep
would we
saying,
do that?
right, exactly. They keep
'Cause
saying, like, oh, we want to make like drug use healthy or whatever, and we want to save lives and basically like a curb addiction. No, you're trying to control the addiction until it gets out of hand. You're not saving anyone from an addiction. You're getting,
the biggest
you're
addiction
keeping them
that's going
alive from
on
an
right
overdose.
now is TDS. It's so alive. It's amazing. Under the Trump administration,
The
the
Trump.
DOJ won a lawsuit in 2021 to prevent the opening of safe injection sites in Philadelphia. Now the agency told the AP it's evaluating supervised consumption sites, including discussions that state and local regulators about appropriate guardrails for such sites as part of an overall approach to harm reduction and public safety. So, I mean, they're going to hire people to come in and watch you do drugs.
I mean, that's insane. I mean, it's
Nobody
literally
wants
trying to
somebody else
control.
watching them do
They're
it.
not getting rid of drug addictions. They're trying to control drug addiction so that they all get high off their
Right.
ass. And then when they move away and they're like, okay, we're done observing you and we're done doing this and we need to go to like the other corner of town or whatever, all of a sudden, all those people who are spiked out on drugs, who may have gone to a hospital or may have gone to someplace else, a facility to actually get help, no, they're still on the street. And so they're all at that same level of being high because you've kept them going. You've tried to help them from like overdosing or whatever. Now they're all going to drop dead from an overdose all at once because you moved away, because you did something else. It's like, okay, I mean, this is like human experimentation right here. I mean, like that's literally what this is. It's like, hey, we're going to give you this stuff and we're going to let you harm yourself, and then we'll observe and we'll keep you alive for, as long as we want. We won't take you to a hospital. We'll just keep you in this little tent or whatever, and like keep you alive. And we'll observe you. And then after that, when we're done with you and we might move on someplace else, like, okay, you just might die. Who cares? Right. I was like, oh, we love you so much for helping you out so much. Wow. Megalomaniacs, people.
I mean, as somebody that's actually dealt with, some of these, drugs in the past or whatever, and had, addictions to them, and have grown up and grown past them. I really feel bad for anybody that's going through these issues right now. It's rough. It's not the easiest thing to do.
And I'm sure the
Most
best
people
thing
think
for
that
you
they're
is to
actually
get more
doing
needles
something
and get
just
more high,
fine,
right?
because they're like, I'm fine. I can do this. I'm fine. Just leave me alone. And that's what most people want. They want to be left alone when they're actually doing it. It's not that they want to be left alone because they don't want to show somebody else what they're doing. They want to be left alone because they need to deal with their issues that they're dealing with, which is leading them down the road of temptation of using the drug. I mean, it all comes from somewhere. It's not that it's just us and one day be like, oh, I'm gonna go down the street and I'm gonna go use some drugs because there's a free, safe place that I can do this.
Some people when they get hooked on it when they're younger because it's like, oh, it's rebellious or whatever.
Right, it's right, exactly. It's rebellious and it's against the authority. The authority says I can't do it. I'm going to do it. So it continues. Some Democrat-run cities like San Francisco, Seattle, New York have experimented in recent years with safe injection sites and safe smoking programs. Nearly 1,400 people have died in San Francisco in the past 2 years of drug overdose. And one new safe drug use site in the city, which has been open 19 days, just 2 people went to detox so far of the roughly 220 users per day, according to according to Michael Schellenberger. Democratic San Francisco Mayor London Breed declared a state of emergency in Tenderloin neighborhood January due to excessive drug overdoses. 650 people died in the city of overdose in 2021, according to the San Francisco Chronicle.
So, look at all those people they helped, right?
Right. All the people that they allowed to continue to do, so, I mean, and, so this, obviously headline had changed as it showed from what we originally wanted to post. If I would have read it that day, it would have been so much fun.
Yeah.
Know that I actually had archived something that, whatever.
My grandson, my great grandson, he likes to kiss his pop, he likes to, he likes to touch me in my, whatever, I can get in trouble for that.
So this guy,
Joe Biden.
Let's see if I can't pull this guy up. This guy has a little, 16 little second message for him. Let me see if I can't pull this guy in here.
Who is this guy?
This guy here, Mr. Hotep Jesus.
Oh, okay. Thought it was going to be Joe Biden.
This is 16 second. There's not a lot to it, but at the same time, you hear it from the horse's mouth. You get the news straight up from who's producing it.
Want to know how distractions affect the Black community? While everybody is worried about one Joe, the other Joe put $30 million towards crack pipes, specifically for the Black community. Is this what you voted for?
I have a T-shirt
That's an awesome
has
question.
Joe Biden touching a child inappropriately, asking, "Is this what you voted for?" Too. I mean, there's lots of things you could ask about Joe Biden if this is what you voted for.
This is what you voted for.
But yes, right, exactly, right.
And I'm not doubting that Joe Biden is the president of the United States. There's nothing you can do about that.
Legitimate.
There's nothing you can do about
potato.
It is what it is. But yes, he is your president of the United States. But this guy really, hits it right on the head. Is this what you voted for? This is the kind of stuff that you willing to promote.
All those crazy white liberal women, my God, freaking threaten to smother and strangle their husbands at night. Freaking Karens, if they don't vote for Joe Biden.
Let's pull this guy up here.
Oh God, I love him. He's so fun.
She's kind of interesting herself.
Well, this might be one that senators are. Senator Tom Cotton tweeted this: to be clear, HHS is giving taxpayer dollars to organizations to distribute crack pipes on their behalf. Just because HHS bureaucrats are not personally handing out the crack pipes doesn't make this a good idea. And Senator Marsha Blackburn vowing to hold up the government funding resolution until it's absolutely clear taxpayers are not shelling out a dime for those crack pipes. Senator Kennedy.
Well, let me say this about Ms. Psaki. She probably ought to be Jana King Employee of the Year, because she has to clean up about 3 messes every single day. Look, here's what I do know. The Biden administration has taken $30 million from their emergency COVID bill, and they're using it to facilitate the smoking of crack cocaine and crystal meth. They say they can make it safer. And I say there's no way to make smoking crack cocaine or meth safer. It's like trying to put a filter on a cigarette. They ought to take this $30 million, which they said they would use for COVID. They ought to use it to secure the border to stop the drugs coming in. They ought to use it to get these folks into addiction programs, and they ought to talk straight to the American people and explain, look, you're right, we got caught trying to help people, make it easier for people to smoke crack, and it was a dumb thing to do, and we've reversed course.
I don't even think the federal government should be funding anything of this nature. This should be local communities helping out their fellow, neighbors and community members and other fellow citizens. I mean, it's not the federal government's job to help you get off of your addiction. That's not the federal government's role in anything of that nature. It's not supposed to be that.
Seriously, the article actually pretty much just has what he had just said. There's nothing more added to it. It was just that quote that they put in the article. If anybody's interested in that article, that stuff will be posted down below. So this one was more of a if it actually helped with understanding how things are actually going and why they're actually going that way. Let's see if I can't. Let's move some of the stuff around. And let's see if I can't pull both of them up. Noises. Let's do this. Because we're not going to read through these. There's too much to actually read through. It's just a reference point so that people understand that this stuff is actually available to look through, and it can be very, very informative so that you understand how devastating it is for somebody to actually come through and say, oh, we're just going to distribute, crack pipes to, any community is ridiculous. Because basically what they're doing is they're
incentivizing more drug use.
Right. They're incentivizing drug use to promote the poor to stay poor.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. If you're poor, we want you to stay poor. Want you to stay addicted, and maybe we want you dead. I mean, hey, because Bill Gates loves himself some depopulation.
So I'm just gonna share. Yeah, I can do that. I'm going to share my whole screen. So there's 2 articles here. These are from congress.gov. Anybody can look these up. I actually can listen to them. They're very, very informative. This one is the Violent Crime Control Law Enforcement Act of 1994.
Oh, this isn't an article. This is from Congress. This is,
Yeah, this is actually from congress.gov.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is not, right. This is not some, off the, whim, whatever site or whatever. This is the government producing their own articles or whatever.
You should look up HR1.
Like you said, there's a way
Bill
to
number
actually listen to them. Yeah. right? There's a couple of
6666.
very good informational articles in here, whatever. So this one here, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988. If you actually look at the original bill and go through some of this or whatever, the majority of it actually was brought up. A lot of the legwork to get this to actually go through was, your illustrious president of the United States.
Illustrious.
Also had a big part to do with this Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. Now this one has been very controversial. There's been a lot of people that have done articles on just this alone. For us to do that right now would be ridiculously mundane, and it probably would not happen. I might actually try doing one where I'd actually hit the listen to the page and allow it to actually read through, but I'd have to start it at a certain spot, because you can see how lengthy these can actually be. There's a lot to them. The point is these ones here, the violent offender incarcerations and the truth of sentencing incentive grants, they really did whatever they could to incarcerate users of crack cocaine, which was this Anti-Drug Abuse Act. When they did that, targeted that under impoverished areas, which there's seems to be an area in almost every city, a small area that's considered the public housing area, that has the quote unquote ones that are working to get themselves from that place to a better place.
Yep.
It's amazing what people will actually, if they use it correctly, can actually move on. They don't have to stay in those areas and think that that's their lifelong home to continue to use the drugs. And that's what what we're pointing out is there's articles out there about what this guy had done. This is about Joe Biden. This is all this is about. It's all about Joe Biden. These two articles had so much to do with him and what he had forced on every community. And it wasn't just that he forced it on, a particular, shade or color, but it just so happened to be at the same time, a lot of it kind of has the same thing to do with it.
Didn't he specifically mention those of color, quote unquote, as he was
very
presenting
vividly,
some of these things?
If you actually go through there and you actually look at the verbiage that came out of his mouth, this man is the most racist, bigoted pile of whateverness. I'd totally tell you to go check out either one of these and give it a good read through. Give it a good, just, flip through it just to kind of, look at some of the main points. And does this it gets very interesting and parts or whatever. I know I don't have it marked out for some good, good reading points or whatever, but I don't need them. You need to go and you need to look at these and actually look through them and, pay attention to this stuff, because this stuff is very, very interesting when it comes down to what's going on in this country right now.
So at the same time as they want to make drugs more readily available for people to use, they're still punishing people for using and owning and possessing and buying and selling of that stuff, correct?
Right. The incarceration from use, which was brought up by this guy for him to actually say, oh, let's produce, let's give them crack pipes so that they can actually smoke the drug that I told them would give them 100-to-1 chance of being incarcerated. And it was the disparity between crack cocaine or from the crack and the powdered cocaine. The difference between the two is, incarcerated, at a tremendous amount, and it's just like, well, wait a minute here. When it's the same thing.
Aren't you
There's
encouraging
not
people
that
to be
much-
addicted to this stuff? Aren't you like testing them and like watching them and surveilling them as they get high, and then you have to like get them off of an overdose before they
Was that
die,
what
and
they're
then
doing?
it's like, oh wait, and then if like the FBI was to catch you, or if someone else was to catch you in possession of those things, and then like maybe hand it off to somebody else, like oh sorry, now you're going to prison.
Right.
It's like,
So
oh, that's lovely.
again, Congress.gov. There's so many very, very interesting articles to read through.
I mean, it's got
Some
the
of it
literal
can
bill
get
listed. I mean, you can read through the
right,
literal bill itself. There's
right,
summarizations
exactly.
and stuff, and like they have it split up into different things, like the text of it, or actions,
Right.
titles,
There's different
amendments,
ways
so
to
forth and
actually
so
go
on to the
through
bill.
certain parts of it.
But
Right.
yeah,
You
I
don't
mean,
have to
they
go through the whole thing all at once, but I'd totally suggest actually taking a look at it.
and then it says tracker, right? Right there it says introduced, passed the House, passed the Senate, resolving differences to the president, became law. So it's kind of helpful to keep track of things.
Right. So that being said, this is going to move on a little bit quicker than. So we listened to Senator Kennedy. This one. This is from Delaware Online. Now, I pulled it up because it's from Delaware. This article is fairly old. When I say fairly old, it's from April of 2019. But because of what we were talking about, here's the 1980s crime bill, big mistake. Joe Biden at Penn Opioid Forum. So,
Now this was written in when was this written?
this is all the way back in April 11th of 2019.
And then there's like a section down there where it says 2020. So like, was this amended then or whatever? Is this like something else was put in to the article?
Where does it say 2020?
Yeah, I read through this like, when was this? Like yesterday, the day before, and I forget like what
Biden
exactly
2020.
it said.
It's
that's the campaign Biden 2020.
It's projecting, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Okay,
right.
so there we go. Okay.
Quick read. So it says former Vice President Joe Biden on Thursday once again expressed regret in the 1980s crime bill he co-sponsored and said better security is needed in the U.S. ports to fix the country's opioid epidemic. The big mistake was us buying into the idea that crack cocaine was different from the powdered cocaine, and having penalties. It should be eliminated. Biden said in the 1988 Anti-Drug Abuse Act. Now, I just showed you the act or whatever. It fell across the 100th Congress. You can go look it up, and you can actually see what was actually specifically said. So this is Biden spoke to a crowd of a couple hundred of University of Pennsylvania Thursday afternoon as part of a panel about an opioid epidemic. The panelists included Jeb Bush, former
Go
Florida
figure, freaking Jeb Bush,
presidential candidate from Philadelphia Mayor James Keeney.
Oh God, anyone that's mayor of Philadelphia is a sack of shit. But notice how like, oh yes, that should be repealed, and notice how fast and quick Joe Biden has been moving to repeal that over the past year. And like, oh wait, no shit, he hasn't. But we're going to encourage people to continue to use crack and get crack, right? Hey,
Right.
It's like we want people to suffer and die and go to prison and stay poor and everything. It's like, gee, And guess who that disproportionately affects? The very people that they claim to be, racially equitable towards, to correct, right?
Right.
The people of color. Wow, he cares
So
so
then
much for
Delaware
you.
Governor John Carney defends
nothing.
Joe Biden in town hall amid debate over unwanted touching. Biden, sorry, I didn't understand more about behavior, addresses 2020 Ron.
Oh my God.
In first remarks, since creepy Uncle Joe claims Biden shifts conversation to worker rights. So these are links to other things, which we're not going to go and click on those. But if
Inappropriate
you think
touching.
about those links that I just read out and you actually think about the possibilities that could come up from the Delaware Online,
I mean, he's still
it could
touching
be
people,
very
guys. I mean, like,
interesting.
he hasn't changed that at all. Even in his
Right?
Alzheimer's and dementia-ridden state, the only thing he genuinely knows how to do best is touch kids and random people, and specifically women and children.
In Delaware, more than 400 people died from drug-related overdoses in 2018, making it the deadliest year on record. State officials estimate in about 72% of those deaths, fentanyl, and the deadly synthetic painkiller that is about 50 times more potent than heroin, was present. Biden, who served as Delaware senator for decades, is expected to announce his candidacy for president of the coming weeks and already been favored for some of the polls. And so you can see they were projecting early. This is in April of 2019. They were projecting that he was actually going to.
Everybody knew he was. I mean, he even said that he was going to, because he slipped, because he had a gaffe, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't really plan to, Well, oh man, I'd be the greatest. I'm gonna be the greatest thing. I mean, I might be the like things like that, right? It's like just let it slip. So anyway,
Biden served as Delaware senator for decades, is expected to announce his candidacy for president, right? Well, he told reporters last week, very close to making the decision. Biden also said if he were to run, he would want to be the last person to announce.
Oh yeah, remember that?
On
That was a big thing.
Thursday, Biden said the country can't deal with this crisis without looking at the hundreds of millions of dollars drug companies spend advertising these drugs in willy-nilly prescriptions written by many U.S. doctors. It's criminal in my mind, Biden said, of drug companies shipping millions of drugs into the small towns of America, particularly in West Virginia. Kenny
Like the Democrats give a
Philadelphia's
damn about
mayor
West
said
Virginia.
that addiction needs to stop being criminalized like it was with crack cocaine in the 1980s. In 1988, Biden was co-sponsor of the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which created tougher sentencing rules for those in possession of crack cocaine than those in possession of powder cocaine. There's a reason, because this form of it is found in more dispersed areas, whereas the powdered cocaine is used more from like higher ups, like lawyers. Seriously,
Sophisticated people like
everybody has some kind of an issue of some kind of use of drug, and it's not like even drinking alcohol. There's an awful lot of people that drink alcohol, which is fine in moderation. Anything done excessively is going to do massive harm to your body. At this time, crack cocaine was more likely to be used among African American and Latino populations, often with low incomes. This is the main thing right here. Low incomes. While powder cocaine was more often used among affluent white people.
And see, that's the other thing too, right? They just mentioned West Virginia. West Virginia's majority population as of now is what would you say? That would probably be like white, like white Appalachians. So it's like, and there's a lot of poor or low income people, right? They're not all like black or colored or Hispanic, and yet they're on drugs out their ass. A lot of these younger people and things like that in that state. So, I mean, you're exactly right in saying that. It's about low income. It's not about just one particular race or another. But I will say that Mr. Biden here, said those very particular things about a certain race of individuals, or not a race, an ethnicity, I would say. I'm going to be correct here, because there's only one race, and that's the human race, and then there's ethnicities of people, right? But
Correct.
he,
Correct.
right. But
I'm like trying to figure out where you're going with that, but yes, absolutely. There's only one race. That's the human race.
right, exactly, right. So like, I mean, so different people of like, different ethnic backgrounds, shall we say, right? And like, there's Joe Biden there, and he's like, making all these comments about them, right? In the same time, he's doing this, pushing forward this, crime bill, right? That has to
Right.
deal with crack cocaine and other forms of cocaine and that kind of thing, right? And then, and then here in his administration, he's promoting the usage of it, but yet he's not getting rid of the laws that make it illegal to
Right,
possess and
exactly.
everything.
That's
So
why
it's like,
kinda
it's
going
almost as
this
though,
this article kind of hits on the crime bill.
right,
'Cause
but it's
this
almost
next
as though,
paragraph-
the total thing of like, the laws and everything and the things that go on, it's about hitting low income communities. It seems as though there are those individuals in, let's say, the Democrat
That's-
Party that,
it's-
have a little bit of a,
it's so highlight.
targeting
income.
towards certain people
Low
of certain
income.
groups.
It's all about low income. That's what it is.
But anyway,
They're gonna direct themselves at the low income. So I know I get beat up on the crime bill, but the crime bill put in drug court, I think we have to do a whole lot more of that diversion to have an impact. You don't.
by the way, look at his face there.
Yeah.
He looks completely different because he had major facial surgery.
Right.
Literally put on a different face for the presidential run. I mean, like, that's not a joke. It's literally
So
happened.
he's got a couple decent quotes in here. So then Biden said the U.S. can help stop illegal drugs from coming into the country by better negotiating with countries where the drugs originate, particularly China and Mexico. But more security is needed at U.S. ports, Biden said. He called for the increase in technology, specifically expensive X-ray like machines that can detect drugs in large tractor trailers. Biden acknowledged that the Obama administration didn't do enough either to increase technology due to the burdensome costs to operate. I'm not being a wise guy, but the wall of the president and all that, instead of building more barriers, we could take 1/10 of the amount of money talked about building the wall and significantly increase the technological capability of ports of entry.
Because
So,
all of those people come through the port of entry legally, right?
right, there was a
Because that's
big
the problem.
ordeal
Oh,
about
wait, no, it's
building barriers and building walls because they needed to speak up against the other side, and that was their big talking point. We all kind of, if you don't remember any of this in the last 2 years, come out from underneath the rock,
Yeah.
come join us in this experiment of human life.
Of reality, right?
There was a brief moment of levity when Jeb Bush made a joking reference to Biden not yet announcing a presidential campaign. Bush was talking about meeting Americans suffering from addiction during the ill-fated run for president, when he added, for Biden's benefit, which I recommend people do, that if they're thinking about it, speaking of addiction, Biden popped back jokingly.
Piped back.
He later said Bush was a hell of a governor. Near the end of the forum, the panelists was asked what they would do to change the inform the public about regarding the opioid crisis. Biden said he wants every American to know how addictive opioid medications can be. A little pain is not bad. So I mean, he's like, a little pain isn't bad. I mean, sometimes you have to actually, kind of work through certain, pains and certain things or whatever.
Although I will say,
sometimes, certain drugs are needed and used to actually take care of certain things.
right.
But, putting it to, oh, this is why I use, certain things is not always, necessarily the way it is. Not everybody's in pain because they use drugs. They use drugs because they feel that it's going to hopefully take them from one spot in their life to the next.
Well, it's mental pain, you could say, right?
Yeah, you could say almost anything you wanted, but what it really, really seriously comes down to is that right there. That right there. Low income. It's always about the income. It's never really been about any of the other things that have anything to do with it. But our point is actually supposed to be about that crime bill that caused so many people to be incarcerated for such a long time for something that was so minimal, and he did this. This is the reason that we're talking about this guy, is because of what he did, how he did it, why he did it. So, how far are we? Hour and 25. Not doing too bad.
Yeah. Pretty good timing.
So then this next one here, there's only a couple left. I mean, we don't have to read all of it. Don't have to read all of it. This is the Atlantic. If I'm not mistaken, the Atlantic's fairly right.
No.
If I'm not mistaken, like slightly. I don't know what their exact placement is. Maybe they are left.
Of course,
Maybe
to me, literally everything's left at this point. But
well, you need to stop watching one person in particular. Just saying. Alex Jones is he's fun to listen to. I'll give you that. But sometimes you got to diversify yourself and look at the other side of things and be like, that's why I don't like them. So, the Atlantic, the crime bill debate shows how short Americans' memories are. In hindsight, complicated policy conversations get flattened into stark shades of right and wrong. So the first little off the get-go, when you actually short American memories, our memories are ridiculously short. We forget how recent things in history have occurred, but we continue to be so stupid to the point where we go and we elect somebody like this guy to the president of the United States of America. What's that?
A literal potato.
Yeah. I mean, so then you seen the picture from the last article? Look at the picture now. Look at the difference between 2 or 3 years because of the facial construction that they did. He's got this little weird thing where they
like one of his earlobes is attached to his face now. Like, what the hell?
Right. This is the one. This is the one that's attached. They pulled this skin back to make him not look so old and baggy, because they're like, well, you look too old.
Now he just looks more frail. Younger. I mean, honest to God, like ever since he's done that, it's like now he just looks like this skinny, frail skeleton that's translucent. It's like.
So then, article goes, it was a moment that may come back to haunt Joe Biden, perhaps as soon as tonight's Democratic debate. In an earlier round this summer, Senator Cory Booker of this is from September of 2019. And you can see how fast that they actually did the facial stuff. It was only from April to September of 2019. You can see the changes. So, all that being said, in the moment that may come back to haunt Joe Biden, perhaps as soon as tonight's Democratic debate, in an earlier round this summer, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey on the former vice president attacking his sponsorship of the 1994 federal crime bill with a roundhouse punch. There are people right now in prison for life for drug offenses because you stood up and used that tough on crime phony rhetoric that got a lot of people elected but destroyed communities like mine. Obviously, you can see Cory Bush is not too excited or too happy about the situation.
Well, I think
And
Cory Booker destroyed his own community himself, but I don't think Joe Biden helped anything. But
yeah, exactly. Cory Booker, did enough damage to his own communities or whatever for him to actually think that this is all about Joe Biden's '94 crime bill is kind of a little ridiculous in itself. But yes, this crime bill had so much to do with destroying certain communities. The um, the poor communities. That's the ones. It is true that the bill, which extended the death penalty to 60 new crimes, stiffened sentences, offered states strong financial incentives for building new prisons, and banned a range of assault weapons, helped lead to the wave of mass incarcerations that resulted in the United States accounting for 25% of the world's prison population.
and that's pretty significant, by the way.
It really it is. It's a large number, and when what are
All for
these?
it's like, oh hey, you were looking at that car over there. Yeah, well, that car was filled with the cocaine. Like, you're under arrest. It's like, I mean, and that's an exaggeration, but if you get what I'm saying, right? It's like if you looked at a bag of cocaine from like 10 feet away, it's like, oh, you're in possession. You're under arrest. It's like, what? It's like, I mean, like that's like it's an exaggeration,
Right,
but that's kind of exemplary, kind of a little ridiculousness of it, where it's just like, if you touched it, if it was in your car and you didn't know it was in your car, and it's like somebody's, like, if your kid or whatever like stuffed it in there or whatever, and then you drove it to your place of work, and then some other person grabbed it out of your car and trafficked it, and you didn't even know, like, you could be thrown in jail because you trafficked drugs.
as you can see, I have assault weapons highlighted there, and I kind of asked the question, "What are these? What are
What are those?
weapons?
What are
Seriously,
those?
instruments of being used against anybody else for any other reason without proper use is
Fair use.
should just not happen. Everybody should be properly trained on how to use a firearm. They're a weapon that are necessary for us to we were given that right to actually possess a gun to protect ourselves. Didn't specify which or how many or um, size or rapidity of the gun. None of it. It didn't specify any of that. It just
It
says we have
didn't.
the right. We have the right. And for people to think that we don't because they want to push
And then
back.
we have the left that wants to take it away. See how I turned it around there, because I'm funny like that,
Right,
right. But
right,
anyway,
right, right. That was good. That was good. But Booker's implication of the law was simply a cynical sop of fearful white voters and the odds of the political realities of the time when the bill passed with bipartisan support, including the votes of more than two-thirds of the Congressional Black Caucus. And with the backing of other
CPC.
black leaders beyond Capitol Hill, this is the second straight presidential election in which the crime bill has loomed as a loaded issue. Hillary Clinton was
Hillary
exonerated
Clinton,
from the
whom we
last
love and adore.
16 for her past support, and it will doubtless continue to surface as long as Biden is in the race. The current furor over the law is the object lesson in just how short the American political memory has become, and in how In hindsight, complicated policy debates get flattened into stark shades of right and wrong.
I literally
I
take a
tell
$20 bill and like I burn it in like a ritual that I do in front of like a picture of Hillary Clinton, and I like have this candle and I like burn it, and like I like do this thing with like a like like a scent or whatever I put into the air, and I love Hillary Clinton. We all do, right? We all. I mean,
So the domestic policy aide of Bill Clinton in 1994, Mr. Michael Waldman says, I tell people today that the crime bill wasn't that controversial back then.
it wasn't
Uh,
that
it
controversial.
wasn't that controversial. Are you kidding me? It was welfare reform that was controversial. Really? And there's an awful lot that, went together
Controversial.
to make all this, the same. It's really hard to spend your time as a candidate to explain the past to the present. The view of the crime bill was hardened into a caricature. Its question is how much energy is it worth trying to fight it?
My father was a head of Planned Parenthood, and that was quite controversial. Among other things that are controversial.
Uh, Today is precisely as distant in time from the 1994 as 1994 was from the Charles Manson murders, the moon landing, and Woodstock. In other words, a world away. Public opinion around the bill was shifted rapidly in recent years. Just 4 years ago, Biden was still proudly referring to the law as the 1994 Biden crime bill. This is his bill. This is everything to do with Joe Biden. This is exactly what we're getting at here. Is this the 1994 Biden crime bill? Is exactly what was pushed to incarcerate more and more people that were poor for longer periods of time because incarcerated populations are easier to control. It's not only the Democratic Party that's changed, it's the country and the context that's changed. Crime between 1960 and 1990 tripled. The level of social disruption and panic that caused is hard to explain now because since then the crime rate has been dropping. We are living with the consequences of the reaction to the very real social crisis of the time.
Well, part of
So,
that time between 1990 until now had to deal with gun laws that were put in and then were taken away, and then people bought guns like mad, and then the crime suddenly dropped conveniently. So there's that little thing there,
right,
that little bit
right.
of information.
Right. So to go along with that information, Representative James Clyburn of South Carolina, who is the House Majority Whip of the highest ranking black member of Congress, voted for the crime bill, and he made the same point in vivid terms. It was the first congressional race in 1992, Clyburn once explained to an audience in a historic black enclave of Atlantic Beach that opposed mandatory minimum prison sentences, which would become a feature of the 1994 legislation.
And this guy's
These
insufferable, by the way.
people darn near lynched me in that meeting, and there wasn't a single white person in the room. The atmosphere back then, the scourge of crack cocaine, and what it was doing to the African American communities, they were all for getting this out of our community. I don't care about what color you are. If you're a criminal, you aren't going to like the crime bill, says Representative Quizzy Mufume of Maryland.
As they make up new crimes, it's like, I mean, it's just amazing. It's like, oh, hey, if you're a criminal, it's like, well, wait, but I wasn't a criminal 30 seconds ago. Now I am. Well, then you ought to not like it then because you're a criminal. But I wasn't until like 30 seconds ago till you passed this. It's like, now I am. It's like, then be afraid, criminal. It's like the level of gaslighting. Like, what the hell? Like, God.
Beyond that, if you're looking for some sense security for bans and weapons that are in our streets, for additional police officers, and for programs for inner city and rural young people, the crime bill helps you. That crime bill helped absolutely nobody.
Made
Other
things worse.
leading black voices did oppose it, however, including former Representative John Conyers of Michigan, a senior Democrat who at the time was a Judiciary Committee, and Representative Maxine Waters of California. The NAACP called it a crime against the American people. Because it was. It's the very elements of the law that liberals now condemn were the product of the way the Washington used to work, and sometimes messy results of the bipartisan give and take. The bill, which also included $30 billion to help hire 100,000 new police officers and more than $6 billion in crime prevention programs, was the kind of compromise that all but unheard of today, and it's nearly failed altogether on procedural vote just before its passage, when an unlikely alliance of legislators band together to defeat the measure that would have sent the bill to the House floor. Republicans who mocked the bill's funding for social programs such as midnight basketball, conservative Democrats who opposed the assault weapon ban, and black and white liberal Democrats who objected to the expansions of the death penalty. So I mean, obviously, there's plenty of controversy to go along with this bill from almost every direction. This isn't just one side having an issue with it. This is multiple different sides of the spectrum looking at it and being like, this bill's going to hurt us. This bill's going to hurt the majority of the population. But they still proceeded with it.
No, that's how Congress runs.
Yeah, exactly. That's
In the
how it
modern
runs.
era, that's how they do it. I mean, you should
The
listen
bill was
to,
eventually,
and just for context for that, you should really go and listen to Tim Pool's podcast with Marjorie Taylor Greene. He has 2 of them now, and she has one by herself and then one with Congressman Thomas Massey, and they really get into like the bullshit that goes on with like Congress and stuff, and how just insanely stupid it all is, and how insanely corrupt it all is. Just the way, just a normal daily function is just shit. So like, just for that context there, right? You know, because it's like, oh, well, I guess this probably wouldn't be good, but like as you said, it's like, just go ahead and just push it anyway. It's like,
right,
you know,
right. So then,
go
provisions to
watch
win
those.
Republican votes needed to passage of the fates of the conservative Democrats sustained opposition to the assault weapon ban. It passed the House on a vote of 235 to 195. The Senate by final tally of 61-38. As my colleague Ronald Brownstein has noted, the bill also had a crucial backing of a coalition of 10 African American mayors representing cities of Detroit, Atlanta, Cleveland, Denver, and Baltimore. So I mean, they're working against their own. That's the most difficult part, is they don't understand what they're actually doing to their own.
I
In
think
talking
several of them
humans
probably
against
do.
humans.
But yeah,
Former Representatives Charles Rango of New York, a longtime Democratic congressman from Harlem, was one of the 11 CBC members to oppose the bill in the end, but he was quick to note that opposing it was much easier for him. Coming from the safely blue district, then it was the members in more competitive places who faced the overwhelming wave of public pressure to act against crime. I don't know if we really need to complete this article. There's a lot more to it. There was anyone associated with the 1994 crime bill will not have a chance to be elected. This is a Donald Trump tweet. And that's pretty much the way I thought it should have been. Whatever. Is anybody that's been in the government for as long as they have and have done nothing but hurt other Americans for their own thoughts and their own opinions and forcing ways of life on them, they shouldn't have any form of power whatsoever.
And then we get those potatoes, It's
Right.
like, well, he just slipped through there, Those potatoes. Most legitimate potatoes, right?
We put stuff in there and we thought we would build it, thought we would build on it. But then we lost in 94 and all the punitive stuff. The Republicans kept all that and got rid of some of the good stuff. Like what?
Yeah.
We went left in this country in 1994, Bill, when we put the assault weapon ban. But then it came time for renewal. We didn't have the votes. The country had gone back to the right. The country is going to move back to the left. We're going to get another assault weapons ban. I don't say it's going to happen next year, but we're going to get one.
Well, that hasn't happened yet, so.
That's
F you.
So, that's a nice little thought. The Atlantic that's seems to be, I guess, from the left.
See, I was right. See, most things are either left or they're just controlled opposition anymore at this point. I mean, honestly, that's the way I see it at this point. Like most of this stuff is like, oh, hey, if it's Fox News or if it's something else, it's like, well, you all are just like pumping out your bullshit narrative of like, oh, we don't like the Democrats because, well, they're liberal. Well, why? It's like, I mean, can you give me any reasons? Can you give me any other policies? Can you give me? No, we just like to bitch about it and then write books and then make money and, we never get anything done or solved or whatever, but who cares? Who gives a damn? I got $1 million on my book last year bitching about the Democrats, so who cares? That's kind of the way that I see a lot of these things, right? It's like, it's the opinion stuff too. It's the,
Right.
It just doesn't matter, most of it.
So this article was from The Hill. This one says White House disputes reports of federal funds for crack pipes. Again, we're not going to read this whole article. This one, it goes off a tangent after a little bit. It's The Hill, for crying out loud.
Remember when John Solomon used to work at The Hill and it was actually like bearable to read some of the things that they posted? Or put like some of the videos? And now it's like after they got rid of him, it was just like
it's not so
dive.
dragging to read through all of it. But again, that's why I said we're not going to read the whole thing because some of it can get very lengthy. The Biden administration on Wednesday pushed back on what it called misinformation, saying the federal grant program meant to reduce harm to drug users does not include taxpayer funding for pipes that can be used to smoke crack or meth. The Department of Health and Human Services put out a statement clarifying no federal funding will be used directly or through subsequent reimbursement of grantees to put pipes in safe smoking kits. So this article come from the 9th. So this come from, so this would be Wednesday night. No federal funding will be used directly as through the subsequent reimbursement of grantees to put pipes in safe smoking kits, even though this
That's
is
just
never
bullshit
been a part
language, by the way.
What was been funded. We felt it was important to put out a public statement from the federal government to make it clear because we saw the spreading of misinformation and the fact that it was having an impact on a range of communities. This is from General Psaki. And we felt,
Uncle Fester,
even though it was never true, that we needed to put out a proactive statement. Again, I really don't care about, it's actually kind of short, I guess. Rubio's comments. Blatant misinformation, adding the grants must stick to federal, state, and local laws.
Oh, that's the HHS spokeswoman talking about his statements, right? Yeah.
Yeah. This is Sarah Luvenheim. End government-funded crack pipes, Blackburn tweeted. Will you have to show our vaccine passport to get your crack pipe? Says Jim Jordan.
Har.
There's no end in sight for this lunacy, says Marco.
Little Marco.
So, an interesting little,
Little Marco.
Little Marco. So just an interesting little article there to go along with all that.
With a little Marco in there. Well, you know what they say about men with small hands,
You want this one? So, no, I promise you, we will not watch this whole thing. I found the area that I wanted, and this is just like a 2-minute clip. We're not watching an hour and 47 minutes of this bitch.
Psaki.
Let's give her a
ragdoll in chief.
Let's give her a full screen.
Uncle Fester in a wig. Mark Zuckerberg in drag.
Oh
God, that face, that sign language, holy. Yeah, like you pointed out. Holy.
Thanks, Jen. HHS just put out a statement clarifying around some reports that crack pipes would be part of the safe smoking kits that are funded by the administration. But can you clarify for us, were they never a part of the kit, or were they removed in response to this reporting and this pushback?
They were never a part of the kit. It was inaccurate reporting, and we wanted to put out information to make that clear.
What is in the safe smoking kit?
A safe smoking kit may contain alcohol swabs, lip balm, other materials to promote hygiene and reduce the transmission of diseases like HIV and hepatitis. I would note that what we're really talking about here is steps that we're taking as a federal government to address the opioid epidemic, which is killing tens of thousands, if not more, Americans every single day, week, month of the year. We put out this statement, though, because there was inaccurate information out there, or I should say HHS put out this statement.
Why the hell is there for this to begin with? Oh, what were you saying? Sorry.
Say that again?
I said, why the hell is there a kit to begin with? It's like, oh, so is there going to be a crack pipe in here? Yeah, exactly. Or is there going to be, what exactly is inside of this little kit that we're going to give druggies to, do? Like, why the hell does this kit exist?
This long, drawn-out bullshit answer that you're coming up with. She obviously, her answer is ridiculously stupid.
Because there was inaccurate information out there, and we wanted to provide clarification on the allowable uses for the HHS harm reduction program. It's not a change in policy. This program, though, is focused on harm reduction strategies, including prioritizing the use of fentanyl test strips and clean syringes. And all of these harm reduction services that will be supported by these programs are intended to save lives from an epidemic that we know is devastating to communities across the country.
And then, so just to put a final point on it, does the administration support any effort then to distribute drug paraphernalia, like the pipes that we were hearing about?
The statement makes clear that we don't support federal funding, indirect or direct, for pipes.
And then,
but we definitely do it for needles, like
syringes and other, necessities.
All of those other necessities we want to make sure, but the crack pipe thing,
heroin, we're going to totally help you.
Right. At least that's what she's saying, right?
Again, we weren't watching much from. She only had there was only a couple statements. I think something come up later on in the somebody asked her another question about crack pipes or whatever, but it wasn't anything that was really all that necessary. So as you can see, they kind of, they push back. They kind of debunked, the misinformation of their, actually putting crack pipes.
Yes, because
And
see, they're not the ones who are directly doing it. It's going to be, other people, and then I guess what they would have the discretion to do it, and I guess they've already voiced that they would do it. So it's like, oh, so you're going to fund all of that? Oh, that's nice. But
so
let's be technical.
this come from Daily Beast. This is how the White House caved to Fox News Biden crack pipe faux scandal. So apparently Fox News had something to do with saying that there's going to be.
Yes, the only person that's keeping Fox News alive at this point, Tucker Carlson.
Right. Following the Fox News fueled outrage over misinformation, the president was handing out free crack pipes in the name of the racial
It's not
equity.
Brian Gilmeade.
The Biden administration seemingly caved to GOP pressure this week by reassuring the public that the grant program to reduce harm among illicit drug users wouldn't include funding for pipes. Yet, even after the White House said on Wednesday afternoon that it was inaccurate to claim the administration was distributing crack pipes, Fox News continued to obsessively cover the faux scandal throughout its programming. It all started with the breathlessly hyped report that the Washington Free Beacon, a conservative news outlet, while spotlighting a $30 million federal grant program
Daily Beast a
overseeing the
left-wing
Substance
outlet?
Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, the Free Beacon zeroed in on the inclusion of smoking kits and supplies. No, I don't give a shit if they're really gonna put the goddamn thing in there or not. I really don't.
It's like, we're not going to put it in the case. We're
enabling
going to take
other
it to the
people
top.
to do what they want to do by putting syringes and all these other things that you're saying are going to actually stop people from doing things. It's not the case. It's not the case whatsoever. That's not a fucking thing. It never fucking will. Just saying, it's so ridiculous right now. The grant itself would provide funds over a 3-year period to overdose prevention programs and nonprofits allowing the safer drug use, as well as for equipment and supplies to enhance harm reduction efforts. And the smoking kit component is just about 20 items set out in a notice of funding opportunity for the 2022 Harm Reduction Program grant. Furthermore, while noting that the safe smoking kits would include supplies for smoking crack cocaine, could include supplies for smoking crack cocaine.
So it's not in every single one. It's just going to be, in half of them that we put out.
If you ask for it, they may produce you with a pipe.
Yeah.
The Free Beacons report also told the grant program to the administration's commitment that prioritizing marginalized groups and communities, claiming this is all part of President Joe Biden's plan to advancing racial equality. In fact, the Beacon's headline, Biden admin to fund crack pipe distribution to advance racial equity. Although the piece implied throughout that glass pipes were definitely included in the kits, the article noted that the HHS spokesperson declined to specify what was included in that similar effort. Is noted by Harm Reduction International generally provided rubber mouthpieces, disinfectant wipes, and filters. At the same time, glass pipes have sometimes been included in harm reduction kits provided by some groups.
Oh.
You don't say. It didn't take long for Republican politicians and Fox to seize the article and strike up a full-blown moral outrage. Much of
you morally righteous people don't want
racial
people addicted.
overtones over Biden supposedly spending $30 million to distribute free crack pipes across America. Last week, Biden talked about being tough on crime. This week, the Biden admin announced funds for crack pipe distribution to advance racial equity. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, an extremely frequent Fox News guest.
Oh, so like what? He's a
But
senator and a Fox News contributor now, according to these people?
yeah, now he's a Fox News, extremely frequent Fox News guest.
Yeah, I call bullshit because he's not extremely frequent on that.
No, right. He's not
That's
extremely
bullshit.
anything. Quote, the Biden administration is going to send crack pipes and meth pipes targeting minority communities. I know that sounds insane. I know that sounds a little bit crazy to be true, argued Marco Rubio.
Little Marco.
Just little Marco. Joe Biden is handing out crack pipes to help racial equity during Black History Month. No, I'm not joking. No, I'm not lying. This is what he thinks of our community, said Earl Weber, a Republican congressional candidate who is black.
Oh my God, he's black and he's Republican.
Whoa, that's just totally out of here, man. Fox News, meanwhile, pounced on the opportunity to continue to pour gasoline on the fire throughout the day on Tuesday and Wednesday. We are learning HHS is considering spending $30 million in crack pipes, handing out crack pipes to drug addicts. The goal is to make smoking crack safer and also advance racial equity. So yeah, you're right. Imagine all the tax money that you pay and the fact that the portion of the money would be going to these programs. Very controversial.
My dad was head of Planned
Carly
Parenthood, and that was very controversial.
Yeah, it's very controversial. From there, the channel's flagship morning show, Fox and Friends, ran segments tying the grant program to affirmative action, while once again claiming the White House had allocated $30 million to distribute crack pipes. Naturally, the outrageous righteous indignation only grew over the next 36 hours. Wait until you hear the report of Biden administration funding crack pipes for equity. You may recall that on this first day in office more than a year ago, the new president explained that equity will require determination and creativity. This
creativity
is true, the far-right host exclaimed at the top of his Tuesday night show. Joe Biden's latest idea is to pay black people to smoke more crack. No, it's not again. It's not again. Not black people. Poor people. Poor people is what the main objective is.
But they're trying to keep as many black people as they can being poor. Keep them in.
He's racist, so yes, he's going to point it that way.
Right.
The thing is when you point it that way, you don't just point it at that community in particular. You point it at a larger community that's also having the same issues and living in, underpoverished areas or whatever, or living in, cul-de-sacs that are formed of gang members and drug users.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. I'm not really going to go into this too much further or whatever, because I think we really, really seriously got to the point. It depends on what side of the spectrum you're reading your news from and what you're actually going to see come up from the news. So always keep in mind when you're actually selecting something that you actually want to actually read, or that you actually want to actually, maybe think that that's a good opinion, look at a media bias chart.
And don't watch CNN.
Yeah, CNN is never really the answer for anything.
And for the love of God, don't watch
really,
Rachel Maddow unless you want to get mad cow disease yourself through the television screen, which has happened. I believe that's been reported
I'm
allegedly.
going to say that my controversial side of it is, really anything further right than maybe the New York Post, and anything further left than if Forbes is not worth reading.
Jimmy Dore's pretty cool. At
I mean,
times.
that's really my main objective when I go and I find stuff or whatever. It's
Yeah,
usually
and don't go off and read Jezebel either, because like that's kind of weird. Like, again, like, hey, I know exactly what we're gonna name our tabloid after. We're gonna name it after an evil witch queen of the Old Testament that if for generations after her, entire civilizations refer to that name as being an evil, wicked
the
woman that kills
ballpark
children.
isn't necessarily the best place to get your news.
And prophets and other different, good people, right? That one. We're gonna name our tabloid. We're gonna name our whatever website after that. Jezebel.
There's a couple interesting ones over here. Like the Tucker Carlson and the PragerU. The Epoch Times. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, this the Turning Point USA, the Hannity, that whole section, selective, incomplete, unfair persuasion, propaganda, and or other issues. None of that is persuasion, propaganda, or selective, incomplete news. It's not how that works. The really, that whole section right there, to me, it seems like it should be up and over in here somewhere. But I guess if that's where they say that they're supposed to be, kind of, obviously don't go be watching Jimmy Dore. Come on. It's so far. Dan Bongino, I mean, he can be okay. Can be. And some things. I mean,
I like
this
Zero Hedge. They got a lot of
section right here. Which one?
Zero Hedge.
Zero Hedge. Where's the Zero Hedge?
Hot, no, cold, go back down, warmer, really hot, real hot, no, cold, warm, cold, still cold, still really cold, really cold, freezing cold. You're like gonna freeze to death. You better go back up and over to like the left-ish, over, up a little. There you go. There it is. Oh, now you're scorching hot. There you go.
So I mean, and you can see even he doesn't even that's about as really close to about as far right as I would go, because like I said, I usually don't go too much further than the New York Post. We did have the article on Lena. That one was, is hyper partisan, right? If I'm not mistaken, is basically where it would fall into. So it actually fall in, somewhere in here, according to what they were saying. But they were talking about somebody that's actually from CNN, which it's up and over here
because they're so trusted,
right? So you really seriously have to take your news, with.
And don't listen to NPR either, for the love of God.
There's so many places, so it's like, we've read articles out of the Daily Caller. Oh, we missed one. I mean, we did miss an article out of Newsweek. Not that it's necessary. I think we got the gist of the story. The gist of the story is just to pay attention to, it pretty much kind of covered the same kind of stuff. I'm just kind of skimming through it right now. Yeah, I mean, it didn't really go too much further or anything different or whatever. It was just the perspective in one side to the other.
And look at it, socialist alternative.
Newsweek kind of runs, kind of leftish or whatever.
I mean, they literally call themselves socialists. Look at that. It's in orange, socialist alternative, and it's above all of those other things. Like it's in the
Right.
same, almost the same category as freaking Rachel Maddow. And it's like, oh, that's just analysis, socialism. Wow. They literally call themselves socialists. Like we're literally pumping an agenda, but it's just analysis, you know. Holy freaking crap.
So,
Anywho's.
again,
I just think
moral
it's
of the story of the 2-part section or whatever is this media bias chart and paying attention to both sides. You go and you grab something, you're like, yeah, I'm going to believe the New York Times. I'm just going to pick on them because I can. And they're like, New York Times. You're like, it says that it skews left. If it skews left, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not that it's not technically news, because they usually their articles are fairly informative. I've read several articles come out of New York Times. You have to, kind of not read too many of them. You kind of get sucked into a whirlwind of, hypocrisy, because that's pretty much what they're going to spin. But yeah, always watch and pay attention to what you're actually reading, what you're reading from. If you don't know, you can put this in, put a media bias chart in a Google search, and you're going to come up with several different forms and variations, ones that actually have all of the articles in them, some of them that don't. And you can see on this Biden article or this Biden thing that we just did here, we went all the way across the board, left to right, back to the left, back to the right. Kind of, I kept it, flowing from one side to the other as opposed to just going for one side and just, wrecking all hacking, being like, yep, this is what you need to listen to if you don't listen to this. No, not at all. Open up your minds and think about what needs to actually happen, and you'll be surprised what you'll actually start reading and what you'll actually believe is to be true. And there's a lot out there that you can kind of go off of. So all that being said, 2 hours 11 minutes. That wasn't so bad.
Yeah, it was good.
You still awake? You okay over there?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and you can throw another shill out if you'd like.
Ooh, the shill.
The shill.
The shill is real. The shill is
He's trying to figure out
strong
what
with
he
his
wants to say.
stream.
I am the ever glorious Koolfrogg. That's Koolfrogg. Anything that you do, you put in that word, you're gonna come up with me. For the most part, there's a couple that might be a little off because I said Getter earlier, and Getter is actually at the pickerel. So I mean, I just kind of the most poisonous frog in the state of Minnesota. Oh, kind of fun.
That was a fish.
No, there's a frog that's also got the same name. In the state of Minnesota, it's considered the most poisonous of the frogs.
Did you mention that in your first pickerel video, and I just didn't remember?
I maybe didn't. Maybe I haven't at all. I don't know.
You should totally clarify that. Because when I looked up a pickerel, I looked at a fish.
Oh, look up a frog. Because that's what I am, a frog.
That's what I was like. I'm like, why is there a fish when he's a frog?
Yeah, I'm a frog. A ribbit.
Honk, honk.
Your turn.
Well, yes, it is frog. Well, you can go to AmericaShirtsFirst.com. It's AmericaShirtsAreFirst.com. The single most based t-shirts on the planet.
Note that he has sitting on his desk each time because he forgets that this website is AmericaShirtsAreFirst.com.
Yes, AmericaShirtsAreFirst.com. Get yourself your base t-shirts there. And, hey, every time anybody sees you, they'll see the truth. So go get yourself a shirt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all that being said, we will be back tomorrow night. It's normally a game night Friday. I don't know what we're doing. If we're doing game night, if we're going to do something else, we might actually see if we can't get a panel in here and we just sit here and chew the fat. We don't know. We haven't talked about it. We'll have to talk about that. We'll sit in Discord for a little bit and we'll figure it out. Anybody that wants to join us in Discord, you come and you subscribe to this channel. You subscribe to the channel. You hit the share, you hit the like, ring the bell. Make sure you hold it and click all so that you get all those notifications. And when you do that, if you actually go follow one of the links, it doesn't matter which one you follow. You come talk to me and ask for Discord. And, I have the tendency to give it out right now. Eventually, it's going to get locked. Eventually, and I don't know how it works, how to actually lock it or whatever. I got to find somebody that actually knows how to do so and keep a lock on it or whatever. And anybody that's actually grandfathered in will actually stay. Anybody, so it's like, get there while you can.
Anybody who's grandfathered in.
Don't wait out too long. You wait out too long, you're going to be paying for it. Usually the time to their locals account.
You're going to be paying for it.
$5.
You'd better get in now.
Whatever. And I don't know if maybe there's a minimum. Maybe you can reduce the minimum. It doesn't have to be $5. And if I can reduce it, I'll reduce it just because.
Pretty sure the minimum wage is like $8.75 across the right. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we can read off all these super chats real quick. Oh, yeah, there's none. Absolutely zero.
Just send him a buy me a coffee.
If you send me anything to buymeacoffee.com/Koolfrogg, you'd be surprised what I'll actually do for it. I'll actually, read the article out. Or read out the questions or statements or whatever needs, and I'll do them live. Just like we are right now.
Live.
So
live.
That being said, that was part 2, and we're at 2 hours and 16 minutes. That's not too bad. That was actually a pretty good show.
Yeah.
Let's say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Later.